Today's guest is John Scott. Now, John has been on previously, and we spoke about his near-death experience due to eating a poisonous mushroom, not a psychedelic one. So that wasn't a psychedelic experience. After the podcast, he has been the most requested guest to have back on. So tonight we've got him back. John, thanks for coming back, bud. I appreciate it.
Jeff, thanks for having me. I didn't expect such a response, but I feel very strongly that now's the time to talk about these experiences. Like I said, last time I spoke with you, I was very reluctant to talk about this publicly because 27, close to 30 years ago when I had it, I was blabbing like a maniac and I hadn't fully absorbed it because it was so profound. And I must have sounded like the classic village idiot running around my local town, and everyone said, something's happened to John, something's happened to John. It sure did. So I realized that it was no good just going, oh, I've spoken with God, because people just go, oh my God, he's gone all religious and stupid. So, but then as it evolved, I got more and more information downloading. It was almost like, I've said this before, it was like a massive zip file was put in me. And the zip file just started to unfold, and it started slowly. Then as I started to realize what was going on, more and more and more info was coming into me. It was like this totally new professor of everything just got forced into this little head and body of mine. So I shut up for 27 years and just went with it. So I kind of almost relived the NDE when I came back, if that makes sense.
Right.
I wasn't the same person, and I know that. Lost all my friends, lost everything. Yeah.
Right.
Well, finally, as I said, in 2010, I was kind of like forced out spiritually, and I was working on crop circles, I wasn't really interested in doing crop circle work. And that took me on an incredible adventure for 3 years, where my whole NDE started flooding in yet again. It's almost like I was reliving it. And that was really disconcerting. In fact, it was very dislocating. And, it caused my marriage broke up and everything, and it was just really bad. So, but the information that was coming through was completely on another slant from what I'd been actually studying. Because I've always said this, I've been getting visions, downloading visions for nearly 30 years, trying to make sense of, I know what happened, but trying to make sense of the information that was put into me, because all of these thought forms, they came in gestalt. Like a gestalt was like this vast package, and it was just another dump of, zip loads straight into me, and then it would just unravel. And so I've just had to manage all this energy that was coming out of each package. And once I got that package sorted, another one would come. So it was a form of channeling.
Right.
And then I realized this early on in the picture, about maybe 5 years into, just after the NDE. And then I realized I was getting shown stuff that there were like strategic earthly bits of information linking to what had happened to me on this cosmic level. And it's been an unbelievable journey. And so if Katie Louise is actually listening to this podcast, and Wayana Collier from New Zealand, they both urged me to write my book and push through, because I've been collating a lot of this stuff in note form for many, many, many years. So I thank Katie immensely for actually editing my book and putting all the information in there, and getting it right for the final release.
Right.
So unfortunately, look, I didn't expect so much response, to be honest.
Well,
I haven't read too many other NDEs. I purposely didn't read any other NDEs, Jeff, because mine was so profound. I was too busy dealing with my own, other than looking at others, trying to correlate or work out what the hell had happened. And then I didn't even know what NDE meant until, about 5 or 6, 8 years ago. And I thought, a near-death experience. Then I saw how brutally other people had their experience, like car crashes, terrible accidents on the hospital table. And I didn't have that, which I'm thinking, well, why? Why didn't I have that? Because I've had 2 NDEs and 2 OBs in my life. The first NDE was nowhere near as profound as this one, but I did get to the tunnel in the first NDE when I was way back when I was 17, 18. So I've had prior experience to these weird anomalies. But this second one, the second ND when I was 30, I'm now 59, was so damned profound. And I feel like there's a common term that some people use in the New Age fraternity. They say walk-in. Yes, I think I was a walk-in, but I don't talk about it too often because what does it matter if a walk-in from what, from where?
I have quite a few questions here from the guests. So if you don't mind, let's
Yeah,
get to their
please.
questions. All right,
Okay.
so let's do what the first one here is. Here's one that says, you mentioned that we all pay for what we do one way or another. What does that look like? Because it's a multiple question. Do people get punished in the afterlife or during another lifetime, or is even using punishment the wrong word?
It's a good question, and that's an ontological, cosmological question, and I always relating to cosmic metaphysical processes. And I always use the word process because a process in and of itself is absolute. We are the end result. We're a soul that comes into a very dense vibration here, but there's laws that rule the whole universe. That's what I was shown. There's a common law that rules the whole universe. In our particular case as humans, we have personal or individual choice, and I'm led to believe that we're the only planet in the universe which is habited by entities all throughout the universe. We're not the only ones. We have individual choice, whereas, say, extraterrestrial entities, through their DNA structure or their cosmic structure, not even the cosmic structure, their biological structure, they have a collective, much like insects. ETs can co-think. They can think, 100 of them can all think together and know what they're thinking. So they have that ability. Now, I know this because I'll get to extraterrestrial stuff later. But with us, we've got individual choice. There is a collective aspect to human consciousness, which I may discuss later. But to answer the question succinctly, payment, it's not necessarily a payment. I now do believe in reincarnation as a cosmology of the transmigration of souls from one vessel to another. Where Christianity and Judaism, because Christianity emerged out of Judaism, they have this real knee-jerk reaction saying, well, it's not in the Bible. My answer to that is, well, the Bible can be tampered with by humans. What you need to ask yourself is, how did that information get down onto transcripts in the first place? How are these things transmitted from spirit through a human to translate it on a script via your hand writing some information? How does it come through us? How does this information get to us? Well, in ancient times, they had specific people who were channels, and they were very, very good at it. That's what they did. Their mind was working on a capacity that most humans can't comprehend. And they would channel this information word for word. Okay. Now, these became sacred scripts only held by certain people. Now, within those scripts, there was cosmology, astrology, reincarnation, the process, which is a process. Okay. Now, Judaism still has remnants of reincarnation in. I've got a bit of instability. I'll wait. Judaism still has remnants. It didn't originate with Judaism, but they still have remnants of reincarnation, and it's called Gilgul, Gilgul.
Mm-hmm.
And they have another word that goes with it called tikkun. Tikkun means rectification. Now, rectification from A to B. We're moving through time and space. Now, we have multiple incarnations. When I got to the light, I'd been to the light millions of times before. I wasn't shocked because I wasn't in my human body. My whole soul was enveloped with love by this stage, pure love. This was the latter phase, a very late phase of my NDE after I'd gone through the tunnel and many gates. And I telepathically spoke directly with a source of light. I didn't call it the Father or God or anything because I didn't believe in God. So I asked a lot of questions, Jeff, but a lot of these questions are answered without even asking them. There's a form of osmosis. You just know it. You know it straight away. One of those was, I'm home. Secondly, I wanted to remain, but I wasn't allowed to. I was sent back. So that gets into choice versus predestiny, which is another subject. The third one is I immediately thought, well, a million lives. I've been here a million times before as a soul, not as John, as a pure soul. John is just the label that my parents gave me in this life. That's not my true name. So we all have an individual true name, which is another discussion about sacred names. But when I realized I'd been there a million times and that it was home and that it was pure and absolute love, I didn't need to worry about being anywhere else because the light's always here. It pervades the whole universe, of which the size is incomprehensible. We have a word called infinity that we box things in. Oh, it's this big. It's infinite.
Yeah.
There's infinite dimensions. There's infinite space and time. And we are stuck or embedded in a time envelope, which I'll later talk about, because if people have got concerns about heaven and hell, well, hell is another discussion. But I did see heaven and hell, but I saw multiple heavens and I saw multiple hell realms. I've since actually studied metaphysics. Now I understand what I was seeing once I studied very deep metaphysical discourse. So the punishment, and a lot of people try to overlay Christian cosmology. Very dangerous thing to do this. Do not overlay a book that's been tampered with. I have no problems with Jesus. I'll give you that straight now. Jesus was a loving human being, compassionate love, and he was a light being sent to earth, but he was one of many in a lineage of high priests through what they call the Melchizedek priesthood. They were called the sons of God, or in the book of Enoch, they were called the sons of heaven. They came from the heavens to earth to help humanity emancipate from darkness. Now, this gets into another discourse and another dialogue about how the Vatican distorted the sons of God into the only Son of God, and then they controlled it through a Tupperware religious system to control the masses for money, power, earthly temples, etc. ad infinitum. So to answer the question, they also took out reincarnation because it directly threatened the priesthood, who wanted money and temples. Once you know about reincarnation, then you can take your spirituality into your own temple within, and you can work out your negative attributes, transmute them into positive. And when you do that, the work's done down here, not on the other side. There's no punishment on the other side. You're sent back in perpetuity until you can emancipate from this time prison that we're in. That's how you get out. There is a way out. Don't let anybody say you can't get out of hell. You can if you start to let go of all worldly and earthly desires like money and things and materialism. You've got to let that all go.
Yeah.
I don't own anything. Oh yeah, I've got a car. But for me, I was immediately given all of this information, and now I can talk about it with some authority because I've actually read the books. I've seen where the errors have been translated. So when I crossed over, there was no judgment. It was pure love. God doesn't judge anyone. So when I hear of these dialogues saying, oh, you get a life review and then you get to feel the pain. No, I didn't feel any pain because God doesn't administer pain. You don't have any pain receptors. You're a soul. You don't have nerve endings. You might get to see, yes, I can't answer for anybody else's NDE, sure. Some people might see what they did to harm others. But all of these people have come back, Jeff. Yeah. All of them have come back. They've all been sent back. So my question is, why was I sent back? Well, I got a big dose. I got a huge dose, but I saw multiple lives. I saw about 10 past lives. That was just a few I've had here. And some are still unraveling and unfolding. But the point I'm making is the more we can purify on earth, we then start to ascend away from the earth dimension. You can do it on earth. You can ascend off the earth without leaving it. It's done in your consciousness. I've studied the subtle body system. I've studied metaphysics. It can all be done. I've got an internet. It be done here, and that's what the scriptures, all of them say, transcend. You can reach heaven alive. You can make it to heaven alive. Yes, you can. Now, I tried to contact the Pope about, this person has questioned, well, judgment. Well, God doesn't judge you. You get a reflection of your whole life. So when you get a life review, it's like we've got this metaphysical system. It's like an envelope. It's called a body. And one of the bodies, you've got seven, these bodies, physical, then you've got the emotional, then you've got the mental, then you've got the causal plane or the karmic body, then you've got the celestial body, and then you've got the logoic body. You've got all these different envelopes or shells. In Kabbalah or Jewish mysticism, in the book of Zohar, they also have a very similar metaphysical system. Everyone has very similar systems in tantric schools of thought. So what happens is when you die, you're going back through your own subtle body system. And this is a very difficult thing to explain, and I'd need probably about an hour to break it down. But when you get to the light, what happens is it reads your karmic body, your causal body. Now, as I said before, it's a process. Everything you say, everything you think, everything you do is stored in that little envelope called the causal body. And the causal body, all it's doing is you're discharging the events back into the light. Does that make sense? You're discharging all of the actions you've ever said from a baby till the day you die. Everything you've thought is discharged back into the light because the light can absorb it. It's so vast, it's incomprehensible. It can do 1 million people at once. It can do 1 billion people at once. It's that vast. People ask the question, what happens if 1 million people all die at once in, say, Hiroshima? Well, they all get absorbed into the light, and the light can handle every single one of them to the oomph degree of detail. It's that powerful. So to answer the question, what happens is you go through and then you're shown good, bad, or ugly. These are labels that we pose onto our actions. Oh, that's evil, that's good, that's bad. No, forget about that. We don't know why things are going on. That's in the hands of the Creator. We should stop judging or doing things unless you're really absolutely certain and you're 100% sure that someone's evil and doing something wrong. Don't judge, because we don't know the karma behind that person. So with karma, which means action, karma is just a fancy Eastern Hindu word for action. Actions just mean mind, thoughts, speech. That's an action. It's a form of energy. And your actions, mind, body, and speech. So those three bodies affect our karmic envelope, and that's all stored. Even this conversation, you and I, when we both die, we will see it again if it's meant to be. If it's meant to be. Does that make sense? And you will be affected by me and vice versa in our interaction here once we die and we pass over. So we don't realize that when we're talking light, like Jesus or Buddha or Krishna, they emitted light. What does that mean, emitting light? They emit truths, cosmic truths. So it's not in their interest. That's why they are Buddha, Jesus, and Krishna, because they were sent here as pure light beings to emanate light. And light transcends time and space. That's why they're still followed 2,500 years later. They're still followed by disciples and aspirants who are trying to attain that divine status. It's really important. So when I say we have to reincarnate, all of us have been here. It's no good just saying, I don't believe that. I didn't believe it either. I was an atheist. Okay. I was a devout atheist. I didn't give an shit about God and all that garbage. I went to church as a kid, and all I saw was a bunch of people singing. I was only a little kid. I see sitting down on these chairs. I see some guy blah blah at the front. Then a bit of money, a silver plate went past with all the money. That excited me because it was money. It was I could see something tangible. As we do, and that was it. So for me, children aren't really ready for they hear nice nursery rhymes, but those nursery rhymes are quite ancient. They're not as they're older than what we're being told. So I've endeavored to try to translate some of those old stories So, but I'm getting off track here. So to answer the question, uh, even the term afterlife, I don't like the term afterlife because that seems to be promoted at the moment as a permanent place to go to.
Mhm.
Okay, when we're dealing about permanency, this can't fit in my mind anymore. There's nothing permanent. We are energy. Energy transmutes constantly. It just reabsorbs back into the light source, and then it projects back out into a piece of light like a soul, and it enters a vessel. And there's trillions of vessels and species out there. This is just one small part of the journey. We paraphrase everything around us, uh, religion, and God. That's very linear. That's very small. It's much, 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 much broader than that. We have no idea. I mean, I've written about this in my book about we come from the stars. We've
Mhm.
all been extraterrestrial before. Our DNA has part ET in it. We
Mhm.
didn't just we didn't just appear. I mean, this gets into creationist stories,
Mhm.
etc. But to answer the question succinctly, you do pay. You do pay for your previous causes and actions. No action can manifest without a previous causal attachment to it. You do something, then you get an effect later. The difficulty is because we're a biological being as opposed to a physics experiment. Like, I let go of a pen, it drops. That's cause and effect. Gravity is affecting it, yeah? But karma doesn't work that immediately until a certain point where it speeds up the more aware you become. So karma, you might kill someone in a previous life. Your intent matters. You might have done it through, maliciousness. Oh, you've frozen a bit. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Your intent might be malicious. Therefore,
Uh-oh.
it's back again. Okay, we're back
That
again.
was weird. It was like you were fast forwarding.
Okay, that happens sometimes. So, but karma is not just negative. You can have positive karma as well, Jeff. This is why I pray every day. This is
Mhm.
why I try to do good actions when I'm called to do them. This is why I talk on podcasts because that produces good karma. So you get a balance of good and negative happening
Yeah.
all the time,
Yeah.
and we can't always see the outcome. Does that make sense? So this is why God can see that.
Mhm.
You get to see the knock-on effects of all your actions because it's vast. It's
Mhm.
vast.
Mhm.
The knock-on effects are very important. So the best thing is always try to do good, always try to do the right thing because it is recorded. That much I know. In my case, it was different. I got to see multiple lives to find out why I'm John in this life because I didn't just have quick consecutive lives down here.
Mhm.
There was thousands of years in between my lives. That much I know.
Right.
And that's for me personally, for my own personal thing. But we're not punished, but we do have to pay back our karma.
Right.
So we're being tested now. The world's gone ballistic, right? So people are going to do stupid stuff. A lot of people will do stuff through ignorance, but get educated. The thing is, we can't remain ignorant forever. We've been told this so many times now by other light workers. Get educated, find out, do not harm anyone. If you don't understand it, fine. All I can say is don't harm anyone at this time because this is the most critical phase in the human transition
Mhm.
into this new spiritual dimension that we're moving into. That's
Right.
why there's all this chaos happening at the moment.
Right.
Any other questions?
Well, I have lots of questions. Let's get to this one. You've mentioned
Okay,
ET.
pound them.
You mentioned ETs twice already tonight, and I have a question about ETs. The question is, or
Yeah.
are, because there seems to be multiple. You said that you had three ET visits. Oh, wait, let me do that again. You said you had three ETs visit you years later in your bed, and they want to know, or the person wants to know, what did they look like? What did they want? And were they there because you asked to see them?
Yes. Okay. To the third part of the question, yes, I did ask to see them. Okay, that answers the third phase of that question.
Mm-hmm.
I'd had more ET contact, which was very profound prior to that. So I'll scroll back about 10 years after my NDE, the light did say that, and it was associated with the Great Pyramid, that was used to communicate with extraterrestrials right throughout the universe. So it was a device, like a telephone to God and or cosmic entities. When I say cosmic entities, I'm talking about entities right across the universe. They all use telepathy. Some of us have the ability to use telepathy, not everyone. It needs to be developed. This is a very esoteric secret. And I think it's part of our evolution. So we're moving into telepathic discourse with these entities at our phase in here. Well, for the people who are ready. I believe, in my own personal opinion, I can't prove it, but I believe it's an evolutionary process from, say, Neanderthal to Homo sapien. It's incremental, it's subtle, but telepathy is powerful in the fact, you know, you get discourse going on, not all the time, because that would be deemed schizophrenic, getting noises and voices in your head. At punctuated important points in your life, when you need it, it'll happen without being prompted, okay? So it might be for a safety issue or whatever, just to guide you away from harm or whatever. The first experience I had with ETs, because I knew they existed, but I'd never seen them, okay? I'd only been told telepathically. I'd seen a few lights here and there, and I was looking into the extraterrestrial phenomena, as most people do. I was curious. And it was huge. And this went right back to the Roswell incident back in the 40s, I think, in the US, where a craft apparently crashed, and then all of a sudden it went all clandestine, and it went hush hush for nearly 8 decades. Now we've got the government admitting, the American government admitting and showing radar proof that ET craft at least exist. We've got Bob Lazar, who's come out, who worked on craft on S4, which is in the Arizona, I think Arizona. So he's come out. The ET, Nevada, thank you for correcting me, Nevada. So this has been quite an ongoing interest on one level. Humanity, well, I'll get back to the experience I had. I was actually doing very deep meditations, and I went to sleep after those meditations, and I'd been using giant crystals, big white, just normal quartz crystals to amplify. I was doing configurations that I'd been shown to do by downloads or channeling, whatever you want to call it, to amplify these thought forms. That night, and I'm going back 15 years ago, I remember it like yesterday, I was lying against my wall, facing the wall behind the couch, because I needed to get out of the room. I couldn't be near anyone because I just needed sleep. I was exhausted. And through the darkness of the lid of my eyes, I could see a light, and it woke me up. And I actually felt like the house was being broken into by a robber. And the configuration of our house, I had a kitchen, then I had back steps, and then I had a park. Well, I thought that person had gone into the kitchen, and I thought micro thoughts, oh, they could have a knife or something, might stab me, I never know. But then I thought, no, this isn't malevolent. So I thought, no, this is ridiculous, because I opened my eyes, it was dark. I rolled back over, and I could see this light inside my head. And I thought, oh, the person's got a torch, damn it. So I opened my eyes, and still nothing. I looked around, it was pitch black, nothing. I thought, what the hell's going on here? So then I rolled back over yet again, but this time, right in the middle of my forehead, inside, in my third eye, I could see a little grey's head. Now, this answers the second part of your question, what do they look like? The classic grey with the large head, the almond-shaped eyes. So this little light is right in my head, and I've gone, I'm focusing in on this thing. I said, this is an ET. What the hell? Mm-hmm. Like, what is that? And I opened my eyes. It was still dark. Closed my eyes. The light was still there in my head. It was like just the head, not the body, just the head right there. Then after that, I rolled back over, and I thought, this is crazy. I thought, I'm going nuts here. But then I felt this energy from my feet go right up my body, right up to the back of my head. And it only took about 15 seconds, like a reboot. And the hairs on my arms stood up. I mean, I really just went, and I swore, I said, what the F? I sat up, and I thought, Jesus, like the energy just went through me. What was that? It wasn't like a ray gun, or it was more like just this filling, like a filling of energy. It was filling me up. Anyway, I thought nothing of it. And what I should have done, there was no one in the room. I should have run straight out the back doorstep and looked up to see if there was a craft. blocking the stars or anything,
Mhm.
because they were doing it remotely, Jeff, remotely. So this opens up a whole can of worms, a whole bunch of questions for me. The technology, for one. Secondly, they know my energetic structure, which means if they know my energy, they know yours, they know everyone else's on the planet. They know how to work our energy system. Not only that, I couldn't sleep for a month to 6 weeks. I was up till 4 a.m. in the morning,
Hmm.
go to bed at 4, wake up at 7,
Wow.
uh, horny as hell, sorry, but I had my energy was like I was 18 again. And
Hmm.
I'm thinking, Christ, my energy's gone through the roof here. So I thought, okay, so I started working then. I started building these grids of quartz rocks, and I got a lot of sightings. A lot of ships would turn up. Nothing as profound as that, but and I was tired. I was chronically exhausted, so they knew I was tired, and they rebooted me up for doing that particular work. So that answers another part of the question. I don't think I called them in, but I think the energy that I'd set up was so powerful. They came and they saw it like a beacon.
Hmm.
Then they came in and they said, well, they booted me up to do more of that kind of work. So, and that segues with the greater purpose of what we're trying to do on the planet now is to try to lift the energy, aka the Schumann resonance, to get to levitate, get the gravity up to what it used to be back in Atlantis. That's what the greater picture is, I feel, is going on. So I scroll forward by about another, say, 5 to 6 to 8 years, and I was in a craft in Melbourne, in the mountains, sorry, and I told you about that one when I saw the oval table inside a dark craft and this glowing table. It was just, floating, very stable, but it was like this liquid movement going on in the table, fluorescent, very low lit. And then when I got in close, I could see it was countries, moving around. So I think I was observing the future, and another human was in there. He didn't appear till halfway through, and I telepathically spoke with him and him with me. And I said something like, "It's really crazy up here. What's going on?" And he said, "Yeah, it's like this is nuts or something." So we kind of instantly dialogued. We're both a bit confused,
Hmm.
and I tried to look around. I couldn't see anything, but I sensed there were ET or entities there watching. So, and I was urged to look at the table. And I don't remember much about after that. And then when I woke up, I remember in my head, I could see the craft moving away as soon as I woke up, and then that dissipated out of my consciousness.
Hmm.
The third time was even more profound because I said, I'm sick of this. I said, here, I know ETs exist. I've spoken to the light. I said, I want to see them. I don't want circumstantial stuff. I don't
Hmm.
want lights in my head. I want to see them. So that's when I had the three over me. In fact, that was a build up. That took about a week. I think I mentioned this in the last podcast. I'd found a little red plastic ring in seaweed on a remote beach,
Hmm.
where I was living on the north coast of New South Wales in Australia. And I mean, it's a deserted beach, Jeff. There's nothing there, just seaweed. It's raw, it's pristine. And I spot this little red thing. And I thought, oh, it's a bit of junk. So I pick it up and it's like, oh my God, it's a little ET's head with a little disc. It's something you'd get out of a Wheaties packet, like a breakfast cereal. And it's
Hmm.
like just for kids to play, a little ET head, but it was a grey's head. Anyway, I thought this is really weird. Anyway, a week later, I was doing a meditation again, coming up to a full moon, and I'd forgotten I'd asked to see them. Well, the next door neighbor comes banging on my door. He says, "John, get out here and see this," because he knew I was into ETs and stuff. "Get out here and see this." I said, "What is it?" Dean, his name was Dean. And I said, "Well, what's that up there?" And he's got his camera and he's filming three lights that appeared over my house. They were quite high up. I'd say, oh, maybe 500 meters, maybe. It's really hard to tell distance because you don't know how big these things are. They formed a triangle, which in and of itself is a very common symbol that they communicate with. Which years later I found out a friend of mine got a triangle tattooed into his leg when he was
Hmm.
in the middle of a crop circle.
Hmm.
So, and I've got photos of that. A guy called John Lusk, who's a professor of geology. He went to England to see the crop circles. And so he had physical evidence on his body. So I thought they always form these triangles. And three seems to be a very common denomination with ET sightings. I don't know why that is, but three is very common. And there was three ETs over me that night. They actually physically were over my bed. And I remember waking up, I saw them, They were greys, tall greys, no emotion, no love, just they were just there. And I was just like, I just gagged because I was in shock. I was in total shock.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden, whoop, I'm out. I'm back asleep again. And then when I woke up, I was like tired, very tired. I don't remember being taken away or anything happening. Checked my body for marks. I had nothing on me to see if I'd actually got like a little tattoo or a stamp or something or a skin scoop. So they didn't do any experiments on me. But that month, I had an exhibition. It was in 2012. I remember it well. I had to drive down interstate into Victoria,
Mhm.
and I had an exhibition. Yep.
All right. Well, we're not even going to get to all these questions. We may have to have a third podcast. But with the
It's
time,
okay.
with the time we
That's
got,
fine.
with the
Yeah.
time we got left, um, let me see. I got a question here from someone from Facebook. He's been so kind in helping me, so I'm going to take his
Yep.
question instead of one of the questions that I had from the audience earlier. He wants to
Okay.
know, can you describe what you learned from Atlantis in your NDE?
Yeah. I've put that in my book, and for anyone who's listening now, they can check out Amazon Kindle. My book's called God's Mountain. I'm not plugging the book, but
Mhm.
on purpose. But there's so much detail in the book about Atlantis, and from what I saw, and excuse me, I only got that was part of the NDE when I got these massive downloads and I was taken and given visuals of these places. And Atlantis was during the first seeding of humanity when we weren't contaminated by the dimension of this dense reality. The building and the structure was all energetically and symbiotically linked to these high priests, from what I was shown, who'd been taught by extraterrestrials how or about the cosmology, astrology, the stars, precession, which is the 26,000 year movement of the Earth through the zodiac. All of this information is very, very, very ancient knowledge, and a lot of people still aren't up to speed on a lot of this. But this was given directly to a high priesthood. So what I saw is that things worked fine for a long time. It was fine. What they were doing is the structure, the Great Pyramid was involved as well. And I go into great detail how the Great Pyramid was linked to the gravity of the planet, as well as the death rites and communication. So it had a multifunctional purpose. So the biggest problem that had happened because of our evolution through the hominid species, and I discuss this in great detail, that we were evolved slowly through multiple hominid species. Then a final species was made, much like Homo sapien. And this species was finally kind of like impregnated with star DNA or a link to our extraterrestrial origins. But some people had abilities. They were like all these different scientists, from what I was shown. They were all different scientists. They all had different schools of thought, like medicine, building, levitation. All of these were different forms or different schools. Some studied the stars, the movement. So they were like timekeepers. And what happened is they would all sort of centralize into a central core of high priesthood. So there's multiple high priests. Um, from what I believe, they all worked in unity, but then it got contaminated because the system itself, or the hierarchical system of the priesthood, was a pyramid system. So you had kind of like a pharaoh at the top, who was really an anti-human. He wasn't. How can I put? That's not a good term. He was a pure channel, if you will. He was like the telephone, and all he would do was just bring information down or through, and then the other scientists would work with that. So, but there were multiple channels depending on where the planet or the position of the planet was in. Say we're in Pisces, then people with respective DNA towards that particular solar system or that particular stellar constellation were amplified, if that makes sense. And then when you moved into Aquarius, then that particular amplification. So they needed different priests over the 26,000 year period who would actually become the telephone. So that system was going for up to 400, close to 400,000 years perfectly. And then about 80,000 years ago, it collapsed because there were some who, at the lower ranks, got in and contaminated it because the density of this planet and the evolution of our hominid energy came in, and it dragged it down. This is the true story of the fall of humanity. So that's when Atlantis collapsed totally. It collapsed because the energy got infiltrated and contaminated from below, from the energies of the earth. Now, the people who did it were high priests, but they got tempted. They got tempted and they wanted the power. And that's the true story of the fall of mankind. That's what I was shown. So there were still these other high priests who ended up moving away from Atlantis after Atlantis collapsed. And you've got to remember, the Atlantean system, the energy was so high in a concentrated area, and it kept the energy of the whole planet elevated. When that contamination happened, the gravity sunk, and it actually caused a warping of the energetic grid, causing massive tectonic activity. You got 400,000 years of accrued energy going out, constantly lifting the energy like the Schumann resonance. All of a sudden, whack, it shrinks. There was no asteroid, there was no comet like Velikovsky posits. No, it was a collapse in the energy emanating out of the Great Pyramid, which was the channel for the whole thing. It was the central core, that particular pyramid. And so it got shut down, and of course, the rest of the planet just went down with it because it was like a conduit. That's the only word I can actually explain. It was a conduit for all of these very powerful forces. And you have to use humans to use it. It's not an energy that goes by itself. The pyramid doesn't work by itself. It had drivers, like spacemen. They hopped in it, and they hopped inside that thing, and they used it. So to answer the question, once that energy of Atlantis had been contaminated, the metaphorical flood happened. And it's not a literal flood. And this is where the biblical story of Noah's Ark comes into its own. It's actually called the Nuoc Ceremony. And the Nuoc Ceremony, that's its original term. Nu is a primordial god of the waters, and Ak means spirit of, AHK. This is where we get the word archangel, Ark of the Covenant. Ark. It's traveled through in the linguistic of English. So this word travels right through many, many places. But what they were doing back then is they were doing ceremonies that were aligned with annual cycles and annual floods. They were aligned with baptism rites. So you'd have these ceremonies juxtaposed to real events that happen in real time. And so the people back then thought that these people were gods because they could control the Nile flood, or they could control the cosmos itself. You'd have eclipses and solar eclipses, lunar eclipses, and the high priests knew about it because they'd been taught from off-world sources. So this was all a perfect system in unification with the seasons, winter or fall, winter, autumn, spring, and then summer. So they had rituals for everything. Everything was highly ritualized. And the priests, not control isn't the right word, they were in a symbiotic relationship with natural forces, in pure equilibrium with these cycles. And of course, the outsiders who weren't initiated thought, oh, they're controlling these forces. You know, it looked like they were actually in charge of the forces. They were magi, they were magicians. They could make the sun move, they could make the moon move, they could make the moon join. You know, everything had a ritual attached to it. But once that was contaminated, Atlantis fell, and Egypt had to rebuild, and that didn't work either because it got recontaminated, because the original rites were lost. The original rites were lost to keep connection to the underworld, the spirit world. And that's where India come into their own, where they're starting to now retransmit from the other side. Many people, not just a few priests, everyone's getting this now. And that's why I was led to believe why I had my experience. Because does that make sense?
I think so. Let me ask you this. I recently had some men on from your country, Australia, and we talked about, I believe it's the prophecy of Uluru, and they know the elders of Uluru. And
yes.
One of them was telling me that I guess you would say the birth of humanity actually comes from Australia. The Pleiadians came to Australia and created Homo sapiens there.
That's an
And maybe
concept
even,
I've spoken.
I was going to say, maybe even Lemuria may come from Australia or something too. So wanted to see if you, being from Australia, knew
Yes,
anything about that and what you thought about that.
yes, I too believe that Australia was the Lemurian continent, the one they talk about, because we talk about these civilizations as being linear, but they were all coexisting, and they all had very similar rights. I mean, I've spoken with Stephen and Evan Strong, who are experts in that field. They have more contact with elders, Indigenous elders, First People here.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I only recently heard about that about 6 weeks to 2 months ago about the magic box prophecy,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew that it was the original Ark of the Covenant. It's actually the original Ark of the Covenant in its etheric form, if that makes sense. It's connected with the first seeding of humanity. Yes, the Pleiadians are very heavily involved in the seeding of humanity because they obviously made multiple species. They could even be the genetic engineers of us. I mean, they're very advanced. They're very advanced. I mean, they're in light form. I don't even think they're in physical form. They're in a dimensional form.
Mm-hmm.
So when they say that they're coming, yes, I agree 100%. And I felt very strongly to actually get that out. And getting over Uluru. Uluru to Indigenous people is one of the most sacred spots in this country. It's actually like the heart center. It's like the heart. They believe it's like their axis mundi. It's the center of the universe for them.
Mm.
And there's caves in there and hidden spots. It's very sacred. And for many years, I've watched people get up there and dance naked and defecate on it. And it's like, oh, people have no idea. This is really, people have heart attacks trying to climb it. You don't need to climb it. You only need to go near it and you can feel it. So on the 21st of December, which is our summer solstice, it would be your winter solstice over your way, the shortest time of the year. It's our longest time of the year. Apparently, coincides with the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. Jupiter and Saturn figured very strongly in the ancient rites. And to give you a background of Jupiter and Saturn, you have all of our planets in our solar system have an internal aspect. So studying Kabbalah, you have behind me, I've got the tree of life, which I can show here. That's the crystal. That's the 10 Sephiro. So I study metaphysics. And the tree of life has correspondence to the 10 planets in our solar system, from the sun right through to Pluto. All of these attributes are inside us energetically. When an ancient initiate was getting physically circumcised through the pain rites, they still practice that with Indigenous peoples, by the way, here. They do it the ancient way.
Wow.
When a boy becomes a man, on becoming of a man, they have to go and get circumcision done by the elders. But what the whole point of that, people say, oh, it's, brutal rites. Ooh, it's ugly. There's lots of blood. But that's not the point. The point is it's designed to drive consciousness into those realms you can't imagine. So it forces your consciousness into the archetype. And you get to enter what we would call the Garden of Eden. You would enter into the archetypal world, which is a broad gestalt. In Kabbalah, that world is called Yetzirah, which is, the vast countenance, they call it. This vast countenance, everyone has that attribute. This would be like Jesus consciousness. This is where your Christ resides inside you, is in the vast countenance. Each and every person has that individual capacity to be a Christ. So this is when I go back to the Vatican's tampering with the Bible, that there was a lineage of sons of God. There was a lineage of high priests who were circumcised away from the masses to become initiates. They were virgins, and then they would actually do the higher rites, and then they would learn this cosmic esoteric knowledge from way back from Atlantis. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So Jupiter and Saturn are now, for the first time, I think, since 400 AD, they're conjuncting. We haven't had this for a very, very, very long time, but Jupiter is a feminine planet and Saturn is a masculine planet. Now, Saturn is the lord of death, the lord of karma. And this is where you get your Jesus dying on the cross. These rites aren't new, they're ancient. the Assyrian death rites would be Asa. It's Asa was the ancient name, or Orsa is the ancient name of Osiris, who would die on the cross. It wasn't a physical person. It was your Saturnian aspect dying. You were dying and leaving the world of time. You were exiting time and you were entering into the cosmos of air of your mind. You were coming out of all those worlds below the world of Absolute, which is the equivalent of the delta region in your concept with dream state. Hence the indigenous people call it dream time. Everything below that is under the waters. So this gets into baptism rites, which is another subject in and of itself. So initiates would baptize internally. They would go through the baptism rites. And Saturn was the lord of death, and you would cut all that learning, you would die, and then you would enter into your intuitive feminine, which is your archetype, and you became a channel. It's not the only rite that happened. There's rites higher than that and deeper than that, which I'm not to discuss. But to answer the question, so when December 21 comes along, we have to get a critical mass of consciousness of people focusing on that etheric box, that magic box above Uluru. You can focus on Uluru if you like. You don't need to be there. But you just meditate on it, and it'll link up the whole planet under that power grid, because there's caves in there, I've heard, that have got crystal skulls and all sorts of stuff from Atlantis there. There's this stuff hidden that I'm possibly not meant to talk about this stuff, but it's there. And the elders, they know about this, so they're the only ones that are allowed into the cave. Stephen and Evan are just, it's amazing that they've actually got this information, because the elders don't talk to people in this country. You got to come in the right way. I mean, you've really got to come in the right way. You got to prove yourself for decades before they even talk to you, if at all. That's how tough it is to talk with these people.
Wow.
So I got a vision about that particular prophecy, and I knew it was the original Ark of the Covenant from the first day that humanity arrived here. That's a big call. It's a whopping big call. But if we can't get the people up, critical mass, to open this box, because it needs to be opened through critical mass of numbers. When we open it, a certain energetic envelope will manifest in our consciousness. We will have become circumcised from the lower density of time. It's another ascension mystery here. We will lift up into another reality, heaven, for want of a better word. You can reach heaven in this human form. It says so in scripture. If I could break the scriptures down if I had time, because it talks about, Enoch made it to heaven alive. Muhammad, Jesus, they all made it to heaven. Jesus died, but he did make it into heaven. In the book of Acts, Paul said he knew a person who made it to the third heaven. So these are spiritual, mystical states of being, and you can return from them. And near-death experience is a mystical state of being. We've all returned from it. There's thousands, if not a million, NDEs happening around the world. Why are so many happening now? Well, the main reason is because they want you to know your soul can release from your body. And that's when I go right back to the original question. Well, what happens when we go on, or do we come back, or what happens? Well, that's a cosmological question of process, whether or not your karma's good enough to come back in this new dimensional world post magic box, or we completely destroy the third dimension and it just dissipates in a conflagration of war or whatever. We don't want to go there. We want to actually lift the energy, because when you lift the energy, other people then link through the archetype, like the 100th monkey, and they go, oh my God, we realize what we're doing. We're working through our animal nature, our fallen state. And we need to get back to that primal Garden of Eden state of consciousness. It's not a place, it's a state of being. That's what we're trying to get back to, is to this Garden of Eden. And sadly, these keys have been stolen. Kabbalah, they're the Kabbalah, and the mushroom that I had, that I died on, is one of the sacred sacraments. And of course, the elite are suppressing this because they want to control this dark cabal. They want to control this, and they keep saying, no, don't go there, it's evil. My God, it's a map of your mind. Why would the map of your mind, designed to emancipate you from slavery, from mental slavery, be evil? Wake up. We have to wake up. The Bible says that we are asleep in Christ. That's the statement that the Christians use. We're asleep. What does that actually mean, asleep? Why are you asleep?
Mm-hmm.
But there's also another term, to be awake in Christ. To be awake. Like Krishna, you're an awakened being. Light comes into your mind. What light? Divine light. So to answer, what was the question? Because it's very easily I run with these questions and I get into these really weird tangents about the magic box. So if anybody wants to do a meditation, 21st of December would be the time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It would be the time to do it.
And I think from what I understand, it's got to be around 9 o'clock of the time of where that rock is. It's got to be Australian time, 9
I'll tell
o'clock.
you something. Don't worry about time. Try to get it within 24 hours. I can tell you something, because in the spirit world, there is no time.
Yeah.
I'll give you a story. I had a friend, she did ayahuasca in the jungles of the Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
I think she did, or she did an ayahuasca ceremony.
Ayahuasca?
And she asked me, John, would you drum for me? I said, sure. I said, I'll drum for you. So I do my ceremony over here. Guess what? I got it a day late. I got it 24 hours late. Right? But she saw me in drumming in her vision quest. So spirit took that backward and placed it in her. So that really threw me. That threw me. So, okay, we get the times wrong. Sometimes we pray wrong. Sometimes we get names wrong. It doesn't matter. It's your intent. It's your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Spirit knows what's going on, what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Spirit knows this.
Right.
So this is why people are adamant you have to use this name or that name. No, you have to use your heart. That's what the Creator wants, is your heart, your love, and your intent. You keep it pure, keep it pure, keep it pure.
Right. We can have probably multiple podcasts, and we're running out of time. So I'm going to save the last question to my question is, when you had your NDE and you were out in the cosmos, out in the universe, out in the stars, when you saw planet Earth, was it round or was it flat?
I actually didn't see the planet as like looking back, because, and again, the way you deliver that question with no disrespect, people say when you were looking at, it's like you're not looking at it, you become it. So I became the earth. So remember last time in the podcast I was talking about how I saw the energy of the seasons. It sped up and I saw it circulating around the planet. It was a circle. So the seasons, and naturally it's a sphere, because seasons work off a spinning ball, being closer to the sun at certain times. So it's actually spherical. If it was a disc, it would have to face, directly towards the sun. Where does magma come from? Does NASA, the little NASA blokes put magma underneath volcanoes and shoot it up out of machines? It's silly. This whole flat earth thing is, I laugh about it, but people are really hooked into it,
Well, honestly, you weren't in on honestly, that question was was basically meant to be a joke, and it was only really a joke between the two of us, because we've been talking about that you were going to make me a flat earth instead of a round earth. So for those of you seeing that,
I promise.
So that's
next podcast. I'll flatten it.
I was just kind of joking about.
I promise. That. I'll flatten it out for you.
Yeah.
Okay. You got me.
That's okay. Like I said,
it's kind of weird, because it's kind of like with conspiracies. See, the CIA invented the word conspiracy. I don't like the word. I prefer alternative research. Mm-hmm. And one of the most dangerous things you can do on this planet is think for yourself and offer alternative research, which is counter to a narrative that's been controlled. I mean, that's like saying, I have to believe in Jesus because of A, B, C. It's like, well, okay, I believe in a creator. Yes. And I know I've been there for an experience. It's the definitions of Jesus. It's the definitions of Buddha, definitions of Krishna. I mean, there are literally tens of thousands of deities that appeared before Jesus appeared, if we're to take the 2,000-year narrative. Tengri in Mongolia, Wakantanka in Native America, Bayami, which is a monotheistic deity with the Aboriginals here. Indigenous First Peoples, Aboriginals is meant to be a derogatory term now.
Okay.
They all have a monotheistic creator, Brahma, to Hindu. And everybody says, no, my God is right. It's like, no, you're not thinking big enough. This little blurby thing describe the ineffable. The ineffable absolute is incapable. You can't use a name or a word or a sound to even get close to it. So when people say you must blur a name, I say, okay, look, names is another thing altogether. You want to talk about philology and linguistics? Yeah, I'll give you a run for your money. I mean, I've done a lot of research in that area. And, Orsa, Orset, Asa Set, Eusa Set, Jesus, Jesus, all these names all have origins in phonetics that I can, phonemes and phonetics that I can break down. Because people, it's not about the names people, it's about the heart. Always work from the energy. Go back to the energy and the intent. Always. God doesn't care. Look, I saw billions of people praying in my NDE, billions, and they were all from all different beliefs. God hears it all. Trust me, it hears it all. I saw it as a great big sound. It wasn't individual voices. It was an energy coming out of billions of people. I saw hell down here on earth, not on the other side, contaminated energy in it. It's impossible to have negative or contaminated energy. We come back here to purify. Some of us have done heinous acts in our previous life. Some have come back to pay that energy off. Others, they get reward. Some people you see, they just swan through life and they get away with everything. You think, how do they do that?
Yeah.
And yet good people get hammered. Book of Job, I don't know. That's not up to me to judge. We've all got our individual karma, and it's a process. We cannot figure it out. We will never figure it out until it's finished, until there's an end time, an end date when the story ends. And the biblical story is a linear story. It's not circular like other religions. It's in fact, it is circular, but we're not given the whole cosmological beef, the meat in scriptures. Trust me, I've done 30 years study in that area. People aren't even touching the surface. They're drinking cow's milk, baby's milk with this stuff. I mean, there's Kabbalah, you've got the Shem HaMephoresh document, 72 sacred names of God. You've got Patsuthim, which is the many faces of God. You've got Merkabah doctrine. I've read over 200 Apocrypha. I've read the Zohar, the Book of Lights. These are heavy metaphysical treatises, and without them, you can't understand front-end scripture, exoteric text. It takes a lifetime to study this stuff. I'm just fortunate enough this stuff got downloaded into me, Jeff. So even doing a podcast about just one subject could take me an hour to 2 hours to break down.
Right.
Just on the names, the use of names,
know. Right.
It's a vast subject.
I don't know if you can answer this quickly within a few minutes. And before I ask this question, I just want to once again, your name of your book is God's Pyramid, right?
No, God's Mountain.
God's Mountain. So if anybody wants to check out John's book, it's called God's Mountain. I don't think you have a website, or do you?
Yeah, I've got a website.
But that's your website is with your art.
I don't promote my book through the website.
Yeah, John is also a terrific artist. And if you can, check out his paintings. He's been an artist for, I believe, about 30 years, a professional artist. He has amazing paintings. So if you get a chance, check out his artwork. What was the name of the website for that?
John Scott Artist, all one word.
Okay.
JohnScottArtist.com.
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 He is on Facebook. I think you do. You're not a private person. You publicly, chat with people online on Facebook, so that they can check you out on Facebook, right?
Yep.
You can find him as John Scott.
Yeah, I'm on the NDE forum.
Yeah, he's in the NDE forum.
I'm on the Near-Death Experience forum.
Right. Yeah.
That's Ned Matinia. So I thank Ned Matinia for actually, allowing us to post on there. Katie Louise as well. She's one of the moderators. So Ned handles that forum. It's one of the best forums on Facebook, in my opinion. A lot of other people do say that. I mean, the levels are different for everyone too. So a forum You could be dealing with trauma from a loss of a loved one,
Mm-hmm.
right through to some of my stuff, which is really out there. And a lot of people don't fully understand where I'm coming from because I've been studying this stuff much longer than I realized. And it's heavy stuff, Jeff,
Right. Yeah. Okay, let's see if we can
It's
do
very
this.
heavy stuff.
We only have a few minutes left, and I don't know if you can answer this question in about 5 minutes, but I'm going to try you. I recently had a podcast with a guy who's been studying the Bible for 30 years, studying NDEs for many, many years. And I believe what he's claiming is that the resurrection of Christ itself is actually an NDE. What is your opinion on that?
I disagree. I think everybody has the potential to resurrect to their spiritual body. We have eight full circuits in our consciousness, and people can read Robert Anton Wilson. I read him years ago. He talks about 4 terrestrial circuits and 4 extraterrestrial circuits, and each circuit going from imprinting, like Freudian imprinting, right up to Jungian archetypes and NDEs, is a massive range in between, like those 8 full circuits. When you wake up to your spiritual body, your spiritual intuition, your internal dialogue with whatever deity you follow, whether it be Muhammad, Buddha, Krishna, Jesus, you're actually becoming resurrected. The term resurrect, you've got to say, what are you resurrecting from and where are you going to? You're resurrecting from an asleep state or a dead state. See, this is where a lot of people don't understand that we're born dead. We're born dead and we must come alive whilst we're in the flesh. So this all gets into baptism rites, awakening rites, circumcision rites, ancient brutal rites. And when you awaken to your mind, your spiritual mind, and it could not be done very quickly. In my case, an NDE is a very quick way of it happening. And yes, a lot of NDEs, and even like myself, we change radically almost overnight. Yes, so I could say I got grace. You could say, yes, I resurrected from the dead because I was not the same John I was prior. But I don't think NDEs are the only way of doing it. I don't think they're the only way. I think it can happen in multiple ways, through meditation, hallucinogenics, near-death experience, just profoundly difficult situation in life where you compress through a very negative situation and you come through the other side. Some people don't make it, they physically die. The ones that do make it then get to the point where they can reflect on it and they grow spiritually. It's all about growth and dying. You're dying all the time. We are dying every single moment of the day. We're dying. We're going through an NDE. Even when you're not having an NDE, you're dying now, Jeff. And this is what people can't handle. You're going through a very, very, very slow NDE at the moment, right? All the NDE, when you actually die, is everything compressed into a very short space. You cross over and it all happens very quickly. And as you go through it, for me anyway, I had to go through different levels. And I was gone for 2 days. So I was given a vast amount of information in 2 days. I got decades, if not thousands of years of information in 2 days. So time is completely irrelevant. So yes, you can be resurrected through that process, but there are other processes. I would never say there is only one way to be resurrected. See, the term resurrection of Christ in the scriptures, your people will note that if they do study the Bible, no one recognized Jesus after 3 days. So even the 3 days is symbolic. In Hebrew, gematria, 3 means emphasis. So, I think Mary comes to the tomb first. And, excuse me, there was 2 angels, and the angel said, well, he's not here. And so Mary's late. So there's another deeper level to that. Then there's 2 disciples on the pathway. Then there's Thomas. And all of them didn't recognize him. They said, well, and Jesus comes up behind them, puts his hand on the shoulder of the disciples or something like that. So it's, what is this? Everything means something in a symbolic. And then he comes to the 12 disciples. But then later on in the book of Corinthians, he turns up to 500. So there's actually 5 phases of the resurrection there. Then we've got another concept of Jesus or Christ coming back as a messianic figure, which is a 6th version of returning. So the second coming is not the second coming, it's about the 6th coming, if we actually technically look at scriptures. So there's a resurrection of something going on, but Each time they didn't recognize him. Why not? Because Christ was in the form of Holy Spirit. And this overlaps with Pentecost, the time when Holy Spirit hits everyone on the planet. Holy Spirit is not just in one person. It can't be. That's limiting God. Holy Spirit's in you. It's in me. It's in everybody. So when we manifest spiritual activity, that is part of a bestowing of grace, and then one can manifest whatever gift they have. According to Corinthians, there's 9 gifts. You have a respective gift that you were born with. You manifest that respective gift, whether it's teaching, prophesy, whatever. There's a whole range of gifts in there. You can check them out. And so death is considered a sin in the book of Corinthians. Death, where is your sting? So what death are they talking about? Because there's multiple deaths going on. And this is something I'd like to discuss later again on another podcast, because there's 2 deaths. There's a first death, the first baptism, then there's a second death mentioned in Revelations 3 times, the second death. And that second death has a lot to do with studying Kabbalah and the stolen key that everyone needs to unravel this mystery, which I've been working on for 30 years. So the second death is where Holy Spirit then purifies the whole world, or salts the whole planet with spirit via the alchemy of fire. So this is when the lake turns into fire and all that stuff. It's not a literal lake. That's the lower realms that are under the water, the baptized state, the ones who are still asleep in Christ. They haven't woken up yet. They're not awake in Buddha. They're not awake in Krishna. They're not awake in Bayami. They're not awake in Wakantanka. They're just not awake yet. So when that compression of all those elements happen, then that water turns into fire. And there's three great elements in Kabbalah: water, fire, and air. So when you go through that alchemically, you transmute into air. They talk about the destruction of heaven in the Bible. Heaven and earth shall pass away. How can heaven pass away if it's on the other side? Well, there's more than one heaven. This is something I've been screaming about on the forum for years. There's 7 heavens. And you can get taken to each, because we can attain the first heaven in the living form. That's where we came from originally in the Garden of Eden. We were living in heaven. We were living in heaven, up in Atziluth, what they call Atziluth, the highest realm in the Tree of Life. The stuff isn't known because people don't talk about it. They don't study it. Well, some do. But there's other heavens post-death as well. And that's what I went to, quite many of them. And it's just too vast to tell. Each heaven I can break down, but we don't have enough time today.
Yeah.
So hell is down here, and it means trapped in time. Hair is the god of endlessness and infinity. El is the ancient name for the planet Saturn. And so we go full circle to this Jupiterian-Saturn conjunction in January, where time is going to get compressed through all of this alchemy and fire, because the energy of the planet is lifting up. It's lifting up. It's lifting up. And if we've got this invisible wall we're banging against, it's like a toilet backing up, with poo backing up in the S-bend, and all the SHIT is coming out, and you see all of these people rioting, going crazy, because they can't get through that Saturnian barrier. They can't get through the death. So they're being forced to go inward eventually. COVID's been fantastic for me. I've gone back through all my old philosophies and had plenty of time to study, because I'm an in-person anyway. But most people, all their sensory perception is external. And this is why they're struggling now with all of this chaos and violence, because they're not transmuting the worlds inside them. They're reacting. Oh, it's Trump, it's Biden, it's Trump, it's Biden. It's all dualistic thinking. That's dualism. Dualism is another subject in and of itself. Duality. There's duality on a vertical plane. There's duality on the emotional, mental, spiritual, on all planes. Duality exists. Massive subject in and of itself, Jeff. Hopefully I didn't overstep that question.
No, you're all right. I think that people are going to have to listen. You give a lot of great information, and it's a lot. And I think people are going to have to listen to this podcast more than once to get it all.
Yes.
And some of it is just flying by.
That's why I always suggest, yes, correct. And it's like, for me, well, this is why I suggest get a pencil and paper. We write this down because, and people can go over the podcast again and again. But the beauty of this is now, because I've had the NDE, I can talk the technical stuff, but I can also bring it down into easy and understandable formats to try to sort of use allegory and metaphor to try to deliver what I'm actually talking about.
Right.
And trust me, there's subjects that are just, even for me, they take a lot of comprehension to sit and think about it and feel it and go back to it, because in my NDE, I experienced all of that. So it's almost like reliving it again. When I talk to you, I'm back in that death state, going back through each realm. So the last podcast I talked about going through the earthly realms. I didn't even get to talk about the gates and the tunnel that much. Just even that in itself I got it so vividly.
Yeah.
And then when I got to the light, that's another story altogether. We didn't even get that far in this podcast either.
Right.
But the actual light itself, I mean, it's just unbelievable. I start crying about it because it's very emotional.
Wow.
The love is so powerful,
Wow.
And I just wish people could get that. But it changed me forever, matey.
Yeah.
It changed me forever.
Yeah.
Sorry, I do get a bit emotional about it,
Well,
because
you're
it's
not
like something that you don't expect it,
Right. Yeah. Well, I generally don't think you're the only one. I've done quite a few of these podcasts, and it's just when you experience something that profound, it's almost like, how could you not be?
If you saw how I lived my life prior to how I changed, my friends know it. My close friends know it. They didn't see me for 30 years, Jeff.
Yeah.
And they said, John, you're the only one that actually bloody do what you say you're going to do.
Right.
You live it. I said, I know where I'm going when I die. I know where I have to go.
Right.
And I don't want to go back with a blemish. Yeah, sure, I still get angry and upset. Who doesn't?
Yeah.
The world's pretty screwed up. We've got a lot of people out there doing some very dark stuff.
Right.
They will have to pay that back. There is no out. I'll give a warning to anyone who's doing that sort of nefarious activity, whether they're CIA, Russian intelligence, English, whatever, MI6, Mossad, Israeli. You all are accountable to a creator. We all die. We must think about our mortality. Go and talk to your grandfather who's about to pass away, or your grandmum, or your loved mother or father on their deathbed. They were once children. They will die. We all die. This is something that we constantly ignore. And people are terrified about what's going on the other side. Listen, if you've done nothing wrong and you're really genuinely trying to be a good person and don't harm anyone, you'll be fine. But the ones who don't even give this a second thought, my God, the Creator can rip our soul apart. Oh, Jeff. The Creator can unravel our soul like a bit of spaghetti, like tangled spaghetti. It can place it anywhere in anything at any time it chooses. Once you're back there, you lose this body, you go back to it. Everyone goes back to source, trust me. And I can't even imagine what's going to happen to those people who are doing harm to others. You don't get away with it. I used to be ex-military. I was ex-Navy. I gave all of that up. I played ice hockey first grade. I gave it up. I don't touch sport anymore. I don't want to compete. I don't want to play card games anymore because it's competing. It's all competition. I don't want to compete with anything. That's how much it changed me, So I still don't think I'm good enough, or how can I deliver these complex? I struggled for decades trying to think, how am I going to deliver this? How in hell do you deliver something so vast? It's almost impossible, but, I suppose that's what life is about, is sharing and getting it out there. Just try and touch one person, with a subject, and just get them moving again. Just get moving, keep moving forward and learn. Find out who you really are,
Right.
Because we are cosmic beings. We are phenomenally potential, mate. We have so much potential, incredible potential, and we're not using it. We're being stymied by fear, We've been capped by fear constantly, and it's just so pervasive.
Right.
Anyway, that's enough from me.
All right, John. Well, I really appreciate you coming on again. I'm thankful. I appreciate you. I wish you the best, and hopefully I'll get you back on again.
Thanks, Jeff. It's I know as I said, every time we talk, we hardly get any time to talk to actually go into the subject. As I said, each I sort of put in so much stuff there, and I just know, oh, there's another book. Oh, there's another book. There's
Yeah.
another conversation. There's another.
Yeah.
So it's difficult for me too because I just got downloaded with so much stuff.
Right.
It's overwhelming.
Right.
So, but thanks for having me again, and thank you for anyone watching. All those people that asked me to come back. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Gives me a forum to talk. I'm very reluctant. I don't like talking about this. I'm not a very good talker. I don't think anyway. And there's a lot of subjects that I only very loosely touched on that I think need broadening and deepening. And I don't like putting anyone off because I don't believe in a particular thing. Well, I believe in everything. Everything. How can I not? Because it all comes from source, all of it. We're fighting over our differences and our ignorance. Creator doesn't do that. Creator loves us non-stop. It just wants us to stop fighting and start talking and communicating, and be a bit open. I don't know what's in store for everyone. All I know is what's in store for me, and sometimes I don't even know that. Thanks, Jeff.
All right, man. You have a great evening. Well, it's actually a great day for you. The day's just started for you over there.
Yeah, it's almost, I think it's
afternoon.
Just after lunch. So I might go on. It's afternoon here. Yeah. Well, 2:48. Yeah, 10 to 3 p.m. Thanks very much for having me, Jeff. Appreciate it.
All right, man. You take care.
Who's going to turn this off? Are you going to leave?
I'm going to leave. I'll turn it off. Bye-bye.
I'll talk about that. I'll talk about the two V's. That's an ancient high priesthood signal. Remember Spock?
Yeah.
They did that before going into the tabernacle. V for Vor, and the other one was for the planet Venus. So we'll talk about that next time.
Oh, that'll be great.
Okay, bud. Okay. See ya.
All right. Cheers.